That's right, Live the Trek family. Recently, we almost had $2,800 worth of bikes stolen from an RV resort with full security. Yeah, so in just a second, I'm gonna show you what happened where someone took some bolt cutters and cut the cable lock that was keeping our bikes secure. And I'm gonna show you that live, like when I first discovered what had happened in just a moment. But in this video, I wanna share with you not only that experience, but also give you some tips and kind of ideas that we've started to pursue to give us a little bit more safety and security of our belongings around the RV and in the RV. But I also want to hear from you guys, particularly those of you who own RVs and do this regularly. What do you use to maybe keep certain items and things secure when you're at a campground, particularly when you're leaving for the day and you just got to hope that everything's okay, or maybe you're dry camping out in the middle of the woods. So that's what we're going to discuss in this video and give you guys some tips now, having experienced an almost theft, and it's pretty wild what happened. But yeah, Ashley and I have about $2,800 worth of bikes here. She's had a giant crossover for a while that she has really enjoyed, but when we were about to leave and do this full time, I need to pick up a new bike that was a little bit better sized for me. The last one I had was a little bit too small, I was discovering, and just a little bit more modern. And so I picked up a Santa Cruz Chameleon is what I picked up right before we headed out, and that was a miracle in itself that I was able to land one of those. But let me share with you what happened the day I discovered the cable being cut. Lesson learned, and almost just got our bikes stolen here at this most recent place that we're staying at, which is in a very nice neighborhood. We have a nice facility behind us. And what I did was I chained up our bikes with a pretty decent, bike chain. I just chained them up together right here. And left them for the whole week that we've been here. Yesterday, I was walking on the other side of the fence here, walking Tommy, and I noticed some really nice bolt cutters. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I almost decided to pick them up myself, but I was like, maybe, they're somebody's that work here and they just forgot them, whatever. Didn't put it together. I just came because we're packing up to put the bikes away, and I see that this was basically like a micron away from being completely cut. So someone was trying to jack our bikes. So from now on, I'm gonna have them very visible, and I'm gonna make sure that I use my heavier duty cable that would have been very difficult for anyone to cut through. Yeah, so there you go, pretty wild. Now, in all honesty, that is a pretty thin cable, and from this point forward, I will not be using that around the campgrounds. What we now are currently using is a much thicker, I believe 3/8 cable. I picked it up like at a Walmart. It's a Banks, I think, cable, and then a really good, nice master lock, and that's wrapped around the bumper, and that's wrapped around the bikes, and that's what we use regardless if it's on the rack or if we're somewhere around and I want to take it off to get access to other things, or we're riding them. But I definitely chain up the bikes at night since having dealt with this issue. And I've heard people say that don't even use a cable lock in general. Now that's a 15-footer, so we can actually do a lot with that, but I am going to probably end up getting some sort of a chain, pretty good thick chain. So I'd like to hear you guys' recommendations on that and your thoughts, cable lock versus chain, particularly for the bikes and the generators. If I have to leave the generators out for some reason, they're usually stored and locked away, but if for some reason I needed to leave them out, I could chain those up and they'd be much more difficult to get broken into, if you will, and stolen. So yeah, pretty wild, and thankfully that did not happen to us and get stolen. But I want to share with you just a few other things that we do. One of them is right here, and that is with these combo locks on all of your storage units. Now, you may not know this, but the locks that come standard on your RV, they're not cut for like a specific thing. They make one set of keys. I could walk over to any other RV in this campground and my key would probably open their storage units. I know that might be wild for you to consider, but that's just the way it is. And so before we left, we got these combo locks just to give us an extra little layer of security for ourselves, and it actually makes it easier to get into things. I don't have to constantly be whipping out my keychain to get into the storage units. I just can do my combo code and then we're good to go. So that's something that you might want to consider. Next up is a good hitch lock right there. This was a combo set that we picked up from Master Lock. Just give you a little extra layer. Now, the likelihood of somebody coming in and actually like pulling your RV away is very slim, you know, for them to have the right, you know, hitch and the right size and the right everything, you know, is very, very minimal, but it's just an extra layer of peace of mind, particularly if you're like dry camping, you know, and you're leaving it somewhere, you know, for the day in the woods, that somebody wouldn't come by, or something like that, you know, is just an extra little layer of protection. Now, one area that I don't really know what to do, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, is securing propane tanks and batteries. I don't have anything currently doing that, and so I don't really know what is available and what really to do and pursue. So if any of you, do you think it's needed, you know, to secure those, and if so, what do you use, particularly if they're exposed, like this, propane, you know, if it's your fifth wheel and it's inside your RV, that's great, or, you know, a motorhome. But if you're a travel trailer, if you have any ideas on how to secure propane and batteries, would love to hear that. So another layer of security would be for your surge protector if you're using one, and I recommend that you should use one, particularly if you're full timing or you're even doing it for an extended period of time. Weekenders, maybe not as big a deal, but the last thing you want is your solar panels and your inverters and converters all getting fried because of high or low voltage. Now we have a really nice one that came highly recommended, gives you readings on, you know, your voltage, as well as what maybe is an issue if it's disconnected or something like that. Codes, it'll tell you, and I've actually used it multiple times. We were having surge problems with one of the poles at a campground. It was saying that I believe it had an open neutral or something like that, and I was able to communicate that to the on-station electrician, and he was able to come over and fix the problem a lot faster than him trying to troubleshoot it on his own. So that was a big help. But this is an expensive part. This is like a $300 piece right here. And so they do come with a little attached metal ring. So I threw a master lock on there. Sometimes you can lock the post and, you know, close it up, and then you can't, you know, remove it. On some of these little latches, some of them come with latches, this one does not. But I'm having to do a 30 amp right now adapter. So it's obviously all completely exposed. So what I'll do is run that master lock, I'll double run this cable lock, and then someone can't pull it over the post. They would literally have to rip out the whole post. So obviously, as we just saw with the bikes, if someone has a, you know, bolt cutter, they can snag that thing. But for a quick smash and grab, someone's just driving through a park and it seems kind of empty in our area or something, and they just run over and grab it and, you know, bolt, they're not going to be able to do that. So at least it's an extra layer of security for that very important part on our rig. Now, what about security from maybe not malicious, I want to steal from you, but like pranks? My buddy, Wes, shout out to you, buddy, told me about this. I forgot about it, and I became a victim of a prank at one of our RV parks. Sometimes what can happen on your tanks and the lever is that there'll be kids, people, you know, wanting to just kind of be jerks or whatever, and think it's funny to unscrew your handle and then open the valve, and so it won't pour out. You think everything's fine because you have a cap, but as soon as you remove the cap, boom, everything comes pouring out. And if it's on your black tank, your poop, that's the worst. So at one of our last stops, I wasn't paying attention. You know, we're trying to get out real quick, and so I was dumping the tanks, and I came back here to our gray tank that's for our sink, our kitchen sink, and I open up the cap right here, or what was there, and boom, out pours all of the gray tank. Now, thankfully, I had the hose in hand, and I was able to quickly snag it, and it, you know, just kind of a big smelly mess right there, a few gallons before I was able to get the hose on. But when I looked a little further, somebody had pulled the lever and then unscrewed the handle, so the handle was gone. And so it made it very difficult to close it, and I had to do like some jerry rigging. And so a simple feature that's kind of a 2-for-1, it'll not only protect against some of those pranks, but it also, in case one of those valves ever breaks, or there's some other issue, it's an extra layer of protection, and it's not that expensive. It was about $25 a piece. I bought one of these attachments right here that goes onto your nozzle, and it's a secondary valve closure. So I have my first valve closure. Now I have a new handle up there. Still doing a little bit of work on that to see if there's damage to it, and if the valve is not fully sealing or not. But this now is a secondary valve. So I can open that one, it'll hit this valve, and then I have to open it again to let it go down into the sewer hose. So we have now put one on the front, or on the rear, and I've done the same over here. So it was $50 for two. but now I have that. So I'm gonna have to pull that valve first, and then it would hit this and then flow through. So when I'm opening this cap, I have this second layer of protection if for some reason I forgot to check this and it was open, or if for some reason the valve broke and I didn't realize that, I have this secondary exterior valve as a little safety mechanism. And so guys, those are the items that we've picked up and been using so far for just some added layers of security. I'd love to hear from you again if there are other items you think I should look into. The main thing is just not to get lulled into a false sense of security, even if you are at a really nice resort style campground, or if you're out dry camping in the middle of nowhere and you don't think anyone's around. You just never know who might be driving by, you know, point of opportunity. I mean, and every time we leave, we just lock up everything. I make sure that, you know, all the storage compartments are all locked, and, you know, the RV is locked. At night, we lock the truck, you know, all that stuff. Even though, you know, the truck's right next to us, you know, it's just not getting lulled in a false sense of security is, I think, important when you are RVing. So love to hear from you guys, those items that you think I should upgrade to, or items that you think I'm not using, or any questions you have. I'll do my best to answer. Nash and I will do our best to answer. And we just appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for watching this particular episode, and watch the other one popping up right now if you haven't gotten up to speed yet on where we're at and what we're doing. And until next time, get out there, live your trek. Later.